After the success of my previous video, it's very tempting to turn to the dark side, if you will, because of all those sweet views and clicks and comments. Good. It would be very easy to just lean into that negative space and just keep hating on Veilguard. But I would prefer to get myself into a kind of neutral headspace so that when I play the game, I go into it as open-minded as I can, obviously keeping in mind all the concerns that I have, but not already expecting it to be an absolute trash bag dumpster fire. So in an attempt to get myself in a better headspace, I want to look at some of the positive things. Are there still any aspects about Veilguard that we can look at and actually cling on to a little bit of hope that the game might be good? So let's get into those. Right. Probably the biggest positive that I think many of us have forgotten about in light of all the controversy surrounding Veilguard, and that is the fact that Dragon Age Veilguard is a fully offline, no day one DLC, no microtransaction, completely single player game. Just for that, BioWare and the developers of Dragon Age Veilguard deserve a damn standing ovation. Okay, now I understand they were kind of forced into that position by the abysmal failure of Anthem, but still, they managed to get it done. They managed to talk EA off their ridiculous course and focus on what BioWare is good at. We all played Anthem. I made a video about it. I ranted about it. That game is not even worth it for free. So the fact that they were able to keep Dragon Age what it was supposed to be, single player, offline, no planned DLC or microtransaction nonsense. Seriously, thank you BioWare for that. Next up, the PC experience. The NVIDIA PC experience trailer showed off some very impressive graphics. It also said that Veilguard launches with full DLSS support. The whole trailer gave me a bit of hope that this game will be much better optimized for PC than some of the games we've had recently, because what happens these days is games are optimized for console, and then when it gets to PC, it's just a broken mess. And what this trailer showed me, hopefully, is that they put a lot of focus on making sure the PC experience is as good as it can be. Additionally, they spoke about the mouse and keyboard controls and how customizable your control setup will be in the game. This is music to my ears as a mouse and keyboard player, because again, most games are just not set up that way anymore these days. It's all set up for console. It's all set up for controllers. But it seemed like they put a lot of effort into making sure your mouse and keyboard experience will be as good as the controller experience. Next up, the quest design. Now this was also something that really made my ears perk up, because one of the problems with Dragon Age Inquisition was, of course, the infamous Hinterlands problem. And as all of us will know by now, the developers have said that the quest design in Dragon Age Veilguard will be much different. It's a much more curated experience, not this massive open world with a bunch of fetch, quest, grind nonsense. It's all mission-based. Even the side content will be a much more mission-based approach, which I really love hearing, because the pacing of Dragon Age Inquisition was probably its worst point. Obviously as well, this one could be hit and miss. It might be a lot more difficult for them to get the pacing right with this kind of design, but I think it will still be an improvement over Dragon Age Inquisition. From quest design to environmental design, probably the most beautiful thing that I've seen so far in any Dragon Age Veilguard trailer are the environments. We saw the Arlathan Forest, we saw the lighthouse, we saw Treviso, and then we also saw areas that looked very grim and very dark, blighted, miserable areas. And I was very happy to see that you have different biomes, not just in terms of weather and foliage, but also in terms of tone. So you have places that look very kind of colorful and happy and vibrant, but you also have these grim, dark, desolate places. That is something that gives me a bit of hope that hopefully we will get to see at least a variety, not just in environment, but maybe also in storytelling. Next up is companion interactions. This is one of the much more positive things that I heard so far about Veilguard. And that's the fact that your companions will not just be stuck in camp or stuck in the lighthouse while you're out and about trying to save the world. They will all go about their business. And the best thing that I heard about this is that you might find them out in the world on their own quests, which you can then join them on and help them complete their quest, whatever they're busy with. This, I feel, brings a level of depth to your companions that I don't think that we've previously seen in Dragon Age games. For instance, in Dragon Age Inquisition, one of the things that I would have always loved to have seen is if you could have used the war table to send your companions on quests. You all remember that you could send either Cullen or Josephine or Liliana on a specific mission on the war table. It would have been really nice if you could have sent your companions and say, hey, Iron Bull, I want you to head off to over there and go fix this problem for me. This was something that I first saw in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. I really liked that system where you sent your young assassins out on missions and you get reports from them. So that would have given a kind of a, just a different little dynamic to your companions. And it seemed like in Veilguard, even though you won't be able to send them on missions yourself, you will find them out in the world doing things and you'll then be able to join them. Really loved this. Great touch. Now the character creator. I can already hear the rumbling in the background there. What I've seen so far is it has a lot of customization options. You have hundreds of tattoos and the hair. Let's just take a moment to just appreciate whoever did the hair physics and the hairstyles in this game. They look incredible. The long hair in game, they just look flowing. It looks phenomenal. So well done, whoever did that. Truly fantastic work. I will obviously admit that the character creator seems to have limitations on certain body sliders that shouldn't have been there. If you're going to give a slider, then let the slider do what it's supposed to do, right? This is supposed to be the positive part of the video. So let's just say that you have an abundance of customization options. Count it as a good thing for now and move on. I want to talk about the combat for just a little bit. Now, this is obviously not the type of combat that I would have preferred for this game. I would have preferred a much more CRPG, slow-paced, real-time with pause combat system like in Dragon Age Origins. But for what it is, it looks to be quite decent. From what I understand, it's difficult to gauge the combat from a preview, but from what we've heard, from pretty reputable sources, I would say like Fextra Life is a pretty good source on these type of things, and he seemed to quite like the combat. And again, the combat doesn't need to be fantastic. It just needs to be serviceable, and it looks to be serviceable. Anyway, for now, I'm focusing on the positive side. I'll get into the negative side of the combat a bit later. But for now, for the positive side of it, it looks to have sufficient depth and intricacy. But finally, on the good side of things, and this is actually kind of my segue into the negative side of things, is the Dragon Age Keep. Initially, when I was making my notes for this video, this was quite a while ago, I had the fact that we will not be using the Dragon Age Keep anymore. I put that down as a positive thing because the Dragon Age Keep was annoying. The fact that you had to link your whatever your PlayStation account or your Steam account. You had to link it to your EA account, and then only you could import your world state. And it was crazy annoying. But obviously now, in hindsight and with more information, I would obviously have preferred that we keep the Dragon Age keep and have more of our previous choices that affect the world state in Veilguard. So let's just get into the negative side of things. Once again, I made a whole video about it, so I'm not going to touch on it for too long. But the lack of choices that we get in Dragon Age Veilguard from our previous games, I've had some more time to think about it, and I simply cannot get over it. Because I've had some comments, where people don't fully understand the depth of the betrayal when it comes to that. So there's two things I want to say. Firstly, Dragon Age Veilguard is not like Mass Effect Andromeda, where the previous chapter of the game was concluded and this is a new chapter that starts. Dragon Age Veilguard was supposed to be the conclusion, the one that tied up all the loose ends. The second thing is, some of us have spent the last 15 years, let's be fair and say, most of us have spent the last 10 years between Inquisition and Veilguard replaying all three Dragon Age games multiple times to get our world state just the way we want it for Veilguard to launch. So the fact that all of that means nothing, and the fact that they waited until just a month before launch to just kind of casually drop the information that, oh, only 3 choices will matter. That is the problem. That's why it feels like a betrayal. And all they had to do was to just create the illusion that our choices matter. We are fully aware that very few of our choices actually matter, but it's that illusion that you are playing in your world state. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about that, but that is my first and probably biggest concern that I have for Veilguard. The next negative that I want to talk about is, again, the combat. While it looked like the combat had some positive sides to it, the thing that worries me about the combat is, who was it actually made for? Because if they were hoping to get new players into the Dragon Age franchise by using this kind of action RPG combat, I think they might be in for a shock. Because action RPG fans have much better options to go to if they want to play an action RPG. I mean, if they want to play an action RPG, they have Diablo 4, they have Path of Exile. Path of Exile 2 is launching soon. They might have made this combat for an audience that doesn't actually exist. And that's why it might miss all its targets. It might miss the old Dragon Age fans and potentially new fans, which means it's just going to go off a cliff. One final thing about the combat is, I don't like the fact that the combat appears to be Mass Effect in a Dragon Age skin. I would prefer that Dragon Age and Mass Effect have their own distinct feels when it comes to combat. Now, back to the character creator. As I said earlier, there are apparently some limitations to the character creator in Dragon Age Veilguard. This already has caused a lot of friction with people because Dragon Age Veilguard appears to be all about inclusivity and, that everybody can really enjoy this game, which I'm fine with. I really don't mind there being more options in a character creator. That's not really where the immersion starts for me. But when you talk about inclusivity, then you really should be inclusive. If you're going to have sliders that make things bigger and smaller, then you really should make them actually useful. Those sliders really should increase the size or decrease the size to the proportions that most people would like. That is something that I think they still can fix, and I really hope they do, because currently that seems to be the only real problem with the character creator in Veilguard. And that brings me to my final concern that I have, and that's the character models in general. I know there's so many people that's spoken about this, and there's not much else that I can say about it. I just don't like this kind of stylized art style that they went for. looks a little funny, and it feels like it doesn't fit with the fantastic art style of the environment. It feels like the character models and the environment were made by two completely separate art teams, where the environment is just beautiful and stunning, and then you have these character models that look strange. It just doesn't fit. That's just from viewing the footage, and maybe we'll get a different feel when we play the game, but for now, that it just really doesn't sit well with me. And that might be something, it might be a small thing, but something like that, it takes a game from an 8 out of 10 to a 7 out of 10. I will play the game, but I think that art style is going to put some people off. It's going to put some people off enough to not even buy the game, to not even play the game. So there you have it. Some positives, some negatives, all in an attempt to get myself into a more neutral headspace about Dragon Age Veilguard. This will be my final video about Dragon Age Veilguard until the game actually releases and I play it and I review it. So let's try and keep it civil, everybody. If you have any comments, please drop them below. If you watch the video, I'm sure you will. And if you've watched this far, thanks a lot for watching. I really do appreciate it. And it's been fun talking about Dragon Age Dreadwolf and then Veilguard, and I'll play it for what it is and I'll do a review on it, and at least we will all then be able to get a little bit of closure on the last 10 years of waiting. So let's all at least look forward to that. I hope you have a good one. Cheers, everybody.